I think we're live.
Is that?
Fantastic.
All right. Yes, we do. Yeah. So welcome everyone. So this will be the very first workshop for our Cronos Hackathon. So we welcome everyone here. Yep. Sorry. I'll just yeah. And so today we have Ella here, our VP from Particle B. And also, well, myself, Leslie Chung here from Cryptocom, and of course, well, today is our guest here, Michael, from Alchemy. So, well, we have been working with Alchemy for quite some time, and Alchemy also always very responsive to our question and also provide very robust infrastructure and also API service. So as you might not know, there's a lot of different DeFi protocol and also NFT platform has been using Alchemy's services such as MakerDAO and Yearn and DYDX, well, OpenSeas. I mean, I can do it for like all day, but I will I will let Michael to give you more details into that. So Michael will be talking about how do we build a scalable, reliable, data consistent blockchain application with Alchemy. Yeah, please welcome. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, Leslie. You're breaking up a little bit for me, so hopefully my internet stays strong throughout this presentation. Just let me know if you lose me. Yeah, again, thank you for the introduction. Thank you to the Cronos and Crypto.com teams for having us here and for Door Hacks for organizing the event. Very excited to participate. We've been longtime partners of Crypto.com, Crypto.org chain, so very excited to participate here and kick off the hackathon, this amazing event. Fantastic. Let me share my screen. So as Leslie mentioned, going to talk through kind of our perspective on what's important in building a scalable, reliable, and data consistent blockchain application. Before we get into the kind of nitty gritty and the more technical content, just wanted to introduce Alchemy a little bit for folks who haven't heard so much about us. So fundamentally, we are, let's see, just give me 1 second. We are a blockchain developer platform. So what that means is we're trying to serve all of the various needs that blockchain developers have when building the kind of amazing applications that they're building. That starts with a very powerful API. And on top of that, we build a number of developer tools to make you more effective, allow you to focus on building product. So we are lucky enough to be surrounded by some really awesome partners, not only our kind of technical partners like Crypto.com, but some amazing investors helping us do the things we're doing. I'm going to have a very talented team of engineers who have scaled infrastructure in the Web 2 world and are kind of bringing those expertise to building out Web 3 infrastructure for developers in this space. And so before we jump into our product and how that can help people build, just want to give you a little perspective on what we're trying to accomplish in the space. By starting with a quick look at history, in particular, how it's led to the blockchain revolution that we're all a part of right now, that Crypto.com and the Cronos are helping drive. And that starts with a little look back at 3 major technological shifts over the past 50 years. So computers, the internet, and now blockchain. From our perspective, these are the 3 most transformational things that have happened in our lifetimes, and in some cases, the previous generation. Starting with computation, machines gained the ability to follow instructions. Obviously, a massive technological shift has empowered most of kind of the tech that we use today, if not all of it. The next step after that was the internet, which allowed machines to exchange information. So it's no longer one isolated computer doing computation and math, but many computers across the world, many machines across the world, exchanging information in much more complicated ways. And now the kind of most recent revolution, blockchain machines finally are able to exchange value. So this unlocks an entire new shift in technology, but also a new shift in use cases. So DeFi, NFTs, things that were not possible before the advent of blockchain, now unlocked and kind of fully accessible to developers and builders like you and I. And I think one of the really exciting things here is we are very much at the beginning of this paradigm shift. New technology like Cronos is coming all the time to enable people to build amazing new things. And so I think 5-10 years from now, DeFi, NFTs, these things will be, I'm sure, just 2 or 3 on a long list of applications that people are using blockchain to build. And as far as the Alchemy vision, where we see ourselves fitting in, so in the PC revolution, it started with these kind of technical primitives. So RAM, CPU, hard disk, the kind of fundamentals of how a machine was able to follow instructions, those technical primitives, as I mentioned. And the world that we wanted to end up in and eventually got into was the application layer. So being able to do powerful things that tap into these primitives, whether it be the web browser, Microsoft Word, Excel, all the different applications that you have on the computer you're likely watching this presentation on. But I think the underappreciated layer there is the platform layer, the operating systems, which allowed the technical primitives to be way easier to build with. The folks who built Google Chrome and Microsoft Word would never have been able to do so if they were doing so directly on top of the hard disk, CPU, and RAM. It would have taken far too much time. And so that level of abstraction, those tools, that platform layer was really critical in doing so. And we see the same thing happen in the internet space with that second technological revolution. You have the same kind of primitives. They're maybe not as familiar to a lot of folks, but I know it's a technical audience here. So things like HTTP, FTP, SMTP, these kind of fundamental building blocks of how the internet works, the protocols that make all of the web apps we know and love function. If you had to build directly on those, there is no way that Netflix or Airbnb or Uber could exist. And so a platform layer comes in to make these things way more attainable. And AWS, GCP, Microsoft Azure kind of provide that ground for other developers to kind of stand on and build more amazing things. And so we expect the same thing will have to happen in blockchain. And we're seeking to be that kind of enabler of developers and enabler of builders. So we have these amazing primitives in Ethereum, Bitcoin, Crypto.org, Cronos, these kind of fundamental building blocks of technology. And there are aspirations for what people want to build, NFTs, DeFi, these kinds of amazing Web3 applications that we've mentioned. And what we want to do is be that platform layer to help developers way more easily build their visions without necessarily having to worry too much about the internals or those kind of fundamental technical primitives. And in doing so, as Leslie mentioned at the beginning, we've been lucky enough to work with some amazing folks. Like I mentioned, Crypto.com, one of our major technical partners, also applications building on top of us quite successfully. The biggest NFT DeFi projects in the world, folks like OpenSea, Maker, Dapper, kind of across all use cases, tapping into the technology and the products that we'll talk through in a second that enable you to build those scalable, reliable, and data consistent applications. And in doing so and working with these amazing partners, power something like $30 billion in on-chain transactions to tens of millions of users worldwide in 99% of countries. This is my personal favorite fact, just because it's amazing to me always how global the blockchain revolution is already. Not sure how many people are on this chat right now, but I'm guessing it spans many different time zones in many different countries, which is always quite cool. And zooming in on one particular use case, we've done a lot to help kind of advance NFTs as a particular use case, work with most of the major NFTs and NFT marketplaces in the world because of the things that the product we'll talk through in a second enable as far as building applications. So now zooming in on the fun stuff, kind of where the challenges are and kind of how you can get around them with a product like Alchemy. So there are two major challenges that we focus on as a company. Number one is a lack of developer tooling, and number two is node infrastructure. We'll talk about both of these, but as you build an application, these are two of the things that are kind of the most significant roadblocks in the way of building an application that has millions of users and does the kind of amazing things that people get into this space to build. In a lot of ways, I think the analogies that we've made to the internet and PC kind of continue here, where blockchain development is a lot like building a website in the early 90s. There is all of a sudden this amazing new technology to tap into, but the support you have as a developer is really not as advanced as you would hope for it to be in a lot of ways. So obviously building in the Web 2 world and building web applications, there are so many levels of abstraction, so many frameworks for you to build on. That you're very well supported. The number of libraries you can lean on to do very cool things is innumerable at this point. But in the blockchain space, we're working to build up that same kind of set of resources. And that's where Alchemy hopes to play a pretty key part. And what we've seen is, people are building incredible things in the blockchain space. Like the kinds of products that people are already building is unbelievable. Like I don't think they were even imaginable a few years ago. But they're doing so with these rudimentary tools. And so our hope is by up-leveling the tool set, by replacing those hammers and chisels with kind of power equipment, you can build even more phenomenal things. You can take what are huts, but maybe look like skyscrapers to us now and kind of transform them into something even more amazing. So zooming in on one of these particular needs, nodes, for anyone who's been around the blockchain space for any number of years, will know nodes are a necessary evil. They are this thing that you need to communicate with the blockchain, but they are maybe one of the more painful parts of doing so. And the reason they're so fundamental is the blockchain is in a sense just a collection of nodes interacting with each other. And so as a developer or even an end user, you need a node or some node equivalent for accessing the blockchain in the first place. It's kind of a non-negotiable for building applications or consuming them in the blockchain world. But there are many challenges in doing so. Number one, and maybe the most obvious to people starting out, is downtime. There's a kind of first deceptive version of downtime that rears its ugly head when you first try to get started building an application, in that nodes often take weeks to sync. This is not quite such an issue with something like Cronos or Crypto.org. They've done quite a good job at improving this. But for something like Ethereum, for instance, maybe takes 2 or 3 weeks when you initially try to create your own application to sync a node from scratch. And even if you're getting started with a brand new blockchain, it's not kind of the instant gratification that you would want in being able to interact with a chain. And so there's kind of that initial downtime where you want to start playing around and building with an application, but you have to figure out how to know a node works and sync it from scratch. And then once you have a node running, they tend to be a pretty idiosyncratic piece of software. They're known to go down kind of most frequently at 2 or 3 a.m. at night, no matter where you live, and do so frequently. And so kind of one of the key goals that we've had is to remove this kind of problem set, remove the need to worry about this from a developer's mind entirely. So nodes are kind of the thing that you don't even have to worry about, whether it's uptime or otherwise. The next piece is that scalability is really a challenge, and that's because nodes are this kind of chunky unit of scaling and relatively inelastic. So when you're building an application, if you're fortunate enough to not launch it publicly and have users as it grows, or maybe the amount of data it consumes increases and you need to grow your scale that way, as soon as you need to run more than one node, you need to deal with the problem of scaling that infrastructure. And the first problem you run into is, again, that syncing issue. If you're not kind of accurately predicting the traffic that you'll need to serve, this kind of chunky unit of scaling may not be able to kind of reach your needs quickly enough. The other thing here is that there are kind of unique challenges that will crop up as you scale and as you kind of apply normal techniques for scaling infrastructure to your blockchain infrastructure in particular. And so this is where data correctness comes in. Most common technique for scaling is very well known to folks who are in the Web 2 world, which is you spin up more blockchain nodes, more Cronos nodes, more Ethereum nodes, and you put a load balancer in front of it as a way of adding redundancy, getting all sorts of nice properties like scale and added reliability. But the problem is, as you'll see here, each node that's behind this load balancer has a slightly different view of the world. They're all syncing with the blockchain independently, which means at any given time, they each have different blocks, different pending transactions. And that means as an application is fetching data from this kind of infrastructure, sometimes it'll see block 100, other times it'll see 101. And so by trying to scale out your application, you've added this kind of additional complexity in the form of data incorrectness, which is quite a tricky challenge. So basically the story is it's tough to get started. It's even tougher to scale. And the unfortunate thing is this has nothing to do with the application that you tried to learn Cronos to begin with, right? Or that you tried to learn Crypto.org to begin with. It's this entirely kind of auxiliary set of challenges that you've had to wrestle with that has nothing to do with the cool kind of economic protocol you're trying to build or the cool art project that you're trying to launch as an NFT, whatever the use case may be. And so as far as developer adoption, we see this as a pretty big hurdle to overcome, and one that we think we can pretty effectively solve. And so this is where the Alchemy blockchain developer platform comes in. So a number of things that we do to help you build those reliable applications. The first, and I think the most important, kind of the base of the pyramid that everything else is built on, is what we call Alchemy Supernode. So as mentioned, spinning up one node is hard enough. Spinning up multiple nodes to achieve any sort of scale, data correctness, and reliability at the same time is quite difficult. And so what we spent basically the last 3-4 years doing is building a system that allows you to get all those things for free without having to worry about the internals of how it works as a developer. I would love to talk your ear off for an hour or so about how Supernode works. If anybody has questions at the end, I would love to dig into the technicals, because I think it's one of the cooler things that we've built and a really significant part of what we do for developers. But for now, I'll say kind of 2 key things. Number one is we basically built this kind of almost consensus mechanism within our infrastructure, which we call Vox Nodi. And effectively what that does is it has every piece of our infrastructure vote on what the kind of correct and consistent view of the world is, which means that no matter when or where a request comes from to our system, it's always returning the same data. So the issue that we saw here with kind of different data depending on which node you get routed to is a thing of the past. The other thing we do is, our team is full of very talented distributed systems engineers. And so wherever we can, we build out these kind of from scratch distributed systems to serve out native Web3 data. So pretty dense stuff, pretty technical stuff. Like I said, if anybody has questions, would love to dive into it. But I think the fundamental consequence of this is that you as a developer get to interact with Supernode as if it's just a single node. It's as simple as developing against the simplest possible API for a blockchain like Cronos. But you get all of this scale and reliability to the point where you could grow to millions of users without having to make a single change. On top of the Supernode, we have something called Alchemy Build. So this is the first of what we would classify as our developer tools. Alchemy Build is really a set of active debugging tools. So when you're deploying smart contracts on chain, when you're making requests to an RPC API, it allows you to, when you have a bug or you have a user complaint, track those things down and debug exactly what's going wrong. I would say the 2 kind of most common categories of debugging workflows that people use Build for are when you're broadcasting a transaction to the chain and it doesn't broadcast or broadcast too slowly, maybe because of gas, which is probably a pretty familiar issue for a lot of folks out there, allowing you to debug what's going wrong in those cases very simply. And the other is when smart contracts fail on chain. So typically what we found is, you're deploying code on chain when you push out a smart contract. It kind of lives in the wild and is doing its own thing. And so a lot of applications don't have a ton of insight into what goes wrong when something fails on chain as far as code execution. And so Alchemy Build gives you a really powerful suite of tools to understand where and what has failed in the process of the smart contract executing. So 2 of the biggest classes of issues that people run into once they have a functioning application on chain, and a really powerful suite of tools to help tackle those things. Its sister tool is what we call Alchemy Monitor. So if Alchemy Build is active debugging tools, Alchemy Monitor is more passive debugging tools. So you may not know something is wrong in the first place, but you want to come to a dashboard to be able to tell what the health of your application looks like. And in addition to application health, see kind of some usage analytics, how your app is growing, where your users are, these kinds of normal application growth metrics that you might like to see as a developer. And so what we've seen is one of the big things that we're trying to help blockchain developers do is make this shift from kind of reactive debugging to proactive debugging, where in a lot of cases, applications in the Web3 space are forced to have kind of user support tickets be their method of finding out about an issue. But through proactive debugging, through something like Alchemy Monitor, you can know about an issue before your users do, and then jump into Alchemy Build, the active debugging suite, and figure out what's wrong and deploy a fix. Something that I think is one of the most powerful things that's part of our suite, which I think is kind of growing in usage and adoption, is what we call Alchemy Notify. So this is the fourth of 5 major categories of tools that we offer. So Notify is basically access to push-based information from the chain. So getting kind of automatic events on important things that are happening for your application or for your users. The key use case here is you can build out actual push notifications with maybe 90 to 95% of the work done for you. So all that's left to you is to consume the events, the kind of notifications that we're pushing to you, and configure the iOS or Android notifications yourself. So a couple of key use cases here are if you want to know when a transaction is mined or when it's dropped on chain, we can kind of wire up notifications for you automatically there. If you want to know about incoming or outgoing activity from a particular address, changes in fees, kind of any of these kind of key events in the life cycle of a user or a product, it's super easy with Alchemy Notify to just configure a webhook and handle those events automatically. So in the past, what we saw basically is developers would have to stand up significant infrastructure, build out custom logic, do weeks or in some cases months of work to stand up the infrastructure to make this happen, and then worry about delivering the kind of push notifications, the product reason for building that in the first place. And so with Alchemy Notified, that first 90% is done for you. And so you can worry about the actual user engagement pieces that you started to get there in the first place. And so the final kind of piece of our product suite is what we call enhanced APIs. This, I think, is arguably the most important thing. And it's basically delivery of new functionality, net new APIs beyond what an ecosystem's native nodes are capable of doing themselves. So this is access to new functionality or kind of enhanced functionality that you can't get from a normal node. My kind of go-to example here is if you want to get the full transaction history for a user, so just one user, you want to look at all of the trades that they've made in their lifetime interacting with a chain. To do that without an enhanced API, you need to look at every single block, every single transaction, and look for that user's address, which, depending on how long the chain has been around, can be thousands, hundreds of thousands, billions of interactions. Super slow, requires extra infrastructure, is probably going to take just like 2 weeks just to backfill a database that you stand up. Super heavyweight. Basically, nobody did this because it was too complicated. And what we did is we built out an enhanced API for this. So instead of doing all of that and understanding the internals of how it's all working, all you need to do is tell us the user you care about, the period of time that you care about, and we'll give you all the transactions that happen for them in like 50 milliseconds instead of 2 weeks. So that's a kind of case study in enhanced APIs, but I hope captures kind of the intent of our entire suite of enhanced APIs, which is to allow developers to do things that they would want to do that feel like they should intuitively be easy, but are maybe not so easy using the kind of technical primitives of blockchain directly, but with the right abstractions are super attainable and super powerful for building out extremely cool applications. And so one thing that's great to mention is we are multi-chain. So when we started out, we focused primarily on Ethereum. It's 2 or 3 years ago where the bulk of the developers were, and actually working very closely with the Crypto.com team as our first partner in the multi-chain world, recognized that there was this push from Ethereum and to some extent Bitcoin to other ecosystems with different value adds, different technology, different kind of value props for applications to build. And so we're super excited to have been working with Crypto.org for over a year now. Like I said, our first multi-chain partner, and have had a focus beyond that on particularly scaling solutions. So ways that you can kind of deal with the kind of fees and the pain points of working with Ethereum directly. And so I think one of the reasons we're really excited about Cronos as an ecosystem is we know and love the team who built it. We know what they're capable of, and so seeing them kind of extend into the EVM compatible space and do things that'll be kind of more easily adoptable for Ethereum developers is really compelling. And so, like I mentioned, we've been a longtime partner of Crypto.com and Crypto.org. We have a kind of publicly hosted Crypto.org chain API. We're currently in talks with their team to build out an API for Cronos as well, and expect that to come quite soon. So yeah, very excited to deepen the relationship with the broader set of Crypto.com tools. Very excited to see what the crew of people build as part of this hackathon and as Cronos gets started. I know we're very bullish on both the Ethereum ecosystem and what Crypto.com is building. And so seeing a kind of beautiful marriage of those two things in an EVM compatible crypto.org chain is a really powerful thing in our mind. Like just the ability to tap into the kind of the consumer market and consumer expertise that crypto.com has with the kind of powerful technology that they built out with Cronos is really exciting. So like I mentioned, pumped to see what the hackathon participants build, and really excited to see the direction. And so as far as next steps, please, we have a super active developer community. We have our kind of engineers and developers active in our Discord, answering questions all the time. Would love to meet the participants of this hackathon there, understand what you're building and what the challenges are as you do so, and hopefully lend a helping hand as you do. So encourage you to join our Discord, check out our documentation, and of course our website at alchemy.com. But otherwise, looking forward to see what you all build.
Awesome. Thank Mike. Thank you very much. And yeah, I think one of our mission is like we're trying to work with the Alchemy team together and trying to sort of like replicate this development experience. In that case, that you are already developing on the Ethereum mainnet. And well, you come to Cronos and you got all the APIs that you have been already using, already very familiar with. And then so you can just plug and go and start developing and also deploy your contract on Cronos. Yeah. And so this is super amazing. And then I'm really looking forward to have Alchemy to integrate with Cronos in the future. And then also, yeah, on the multi-chain side, in particular, Cronos will be a Cosmos SDK based chain. And then the IBC is happening, the Cosmos universe has been connecting to each other. So this is something that's very amazing. And we all getting very excited because we are sitting at the intersection of Ethereum, which is a well-developed, already has been functioning, many traffics opening there, and also a rather new ecosystem, which is the Cosmos SDK ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So something that we're definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, as we launch,
amazing. I think a really powerful position to be in to be able to tap into both IBC and what Cosmos is doing, but also be so. Apologies. I think there's a little bit of a delay. Sorry, Ella. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. Keep on going. I have a different comment, but yeah, finish what you're saying first.
I was just going to say, I think it's a very cool intersection, I think, to be at the center of both IBC and what's powerful and achievable with Cosmos, but also be so approachable for Ethereum developers. I also wanted to mention, I think, there is a rich community of developer tools now in the blockchain space. Alchemy is obviously one that we're very proud of, but there are others like Hardhat, Tenderly, these tools that are very powerful and approachable to developers. And I think by being EVM compatible and by building on Ethermint, a lot of these tools will be kind of natively compatible on Cronos, which is, I think, a huge asset, a really cool thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like as we launch Cronos blockchain, I mean, one thing is like we're very focused on delivering a very good end user experience, but at the same time, like having a very good developer experience and developer toolings and environment is one of the top priorities for the teams here at Cronos as well. So yeah, super excited and very much looking forward to seeing the Cronos logo on your multi-chain slide very soon.
Soon.
Yeah, I guess one question I have is, you in the crypto and blockchain world, you always have this choice of balance among different things, right? Like as we were very much, we were all about decentralization, not really like focusing relying on just a small set of service providers, but also like as we scale and reach to the mass market, you know, you need to have the Web 2 level of performance and ease of use for developers. What kind of role do you think Alchemy is playing in this dynamic?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I think there is obviously a balance there. Actually, to give you a sense, so when we first started building our developer platform more than 3 years ago, we interviewed something like 100 to 150 developers about their priorities exactly in regards to this, like scale versus reliability, performance, decentralization. And what we heard was we actually had a full white paper for doing some kind of like really cool decentralized things. And what we heard from developers then was, don't do that. Like, build us something that works to begin with. We want to scale our applications. We want to tap into the power of blockchain in a way that is going to allow us to do the things that we want to do very quickly. And so that's kind of where we focused our attention. We're a very customer-driven org. We have very close relationships with the users who build on us, and so our roadmap is very much determined by what people are asking for and what's going to be high leverage for them. But I think the role that we play is to push towards decentralization over time in a way that maintains the quality of the tooling. So I think there was a sprint to build out what in Alchemy's case is a pipeline to and from the network that has centralized aspects, but basically over time push towards a more decentralized world in a way that keeps developer experience and user experience high. So it's something we're always thinking about as an organization is, what are the right trade-offs to make there that kind of capture what people come into the space and are excited about in the first place, but allow them to do so in a way that's as powerful and kind of easy to use as both the developer and user as Web 2 maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Even just for simple things like, you know, as a non-dev, I'm very interested in that notify function that you talk about. Simple things like that. Yeah, exactly. Simple things like that, like you take it as granted for Web 2 apps, but you know, in terms of the user experience for Web 3 applications, we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, totally. And I think, to be honest, a lot of the things that have been tough with user experience, I think are caused by the fact that these technical primitives are really hard to deal with. Like, I think some of the best builders from every space have come into Web3 now. That's personally what I'm most excited about. The amount of talent that's in the space now is unbelievable. And it's not like that they don't know that notifications are great for driving good user experiences and engagement. It's just that it's so hard to build using the kind of existing tool set. And so, you know, as more and more talent comes and builds more and more layers of abstraction, I think, you know, that user experience is going to super rapidly improve.
Yep, totally agree.
I think I have a rather technical question on the Supernode. And because I can see that your team sort of like implement an extra layer of consensus mechanism through different nukes, because different nukes could be, you know, feeding different types of data. Different number of blocks in your example. And so I was just wondering, because, for example, like Ethereum block time is like 12 seconds, but with this extra layer of consensus happening over there, kind of like dragging this real-time data back in sort of sense?
Sorry, you broke up for like the last 10 seconds, maybe, Leslie. Do you mind repeating the end of your question?
Oh, yeah. So say for example, the Ethereum blocks it's every single 12 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. And then so would this extra consensus layer kind of like slow down the real-time data that you guys are feeding to the end user?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
That? Yeah.
Super good question. The short answer is this is super important to us. Like, most use cases are already unhappy with the fact that data only comes every 12 seconds. And so that's already a pain point. So adding latency there is kind of unacceptable for most of the projects that we work with. And so we're constantly doing benchmarking against what it looks like to run a single node. And so long story short, the ways that we do this are pretty complicated, but by virtue of running many nodes that have access to different parts of the network, and by being intelligent about how we run this, it's not technically a consensus algorithm, but it looks like one in some ways. By designing that in an intelligent way, we are able to see blocks as fast as a single node would, but do so in a way where we conserve it kind of reliability with the properties of a distributed system.
Yeah, and then also I can foresee that in the future, there's some technical challenge that we might face is when we connect to multi-chain, and then you got like 2 nodes from 2 different chain, and then this sort of a latency and legacy will comes into here, and then what goes into the system and try to fit to the end user will be something that the distributive engineering part will be have to take care of in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, there's super interesting problems. I think all over the place when you go to multi-chain. I think all of the things we've talked about so far, whether it's developer experience, user experience, like I think all of these things get harder, but also more powerful as you go multi-chain. So I think there will be no shortage of things for our team and yours to be working on as we make this experience better.
Yes, totally. Yeah, pretty much I'm good on my side. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mike, as the first guest speaker for our hackathon.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to chat with y'all.
Yeah.
Very much looking forward to working with you guys. And for those audience out there, don't forget to register on HackerLink. We already see a lot of submissions coming. And yeah, come join and build with us. Also, you know, there's a pretty good prize pool available for the high quality projects out there. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Mike.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ala.
Bye.
Take care.